We have understood, enriched, and cleaned the data, we are ready for modeling. To review, the goal of this project is to segment customers so that we can understand their behavior more granularly. Specifically, spending habits and how they respond to marketing campaigns. This workflow is our modeling workflow. To segment our customers, we will be using a k-means clustering model. At the beginning of the workflow, we are preparing our data for modeling. In previous steps, we prepared our data for all sorts of modeling. So in this step, we are preparing our data specifically for clustering. After we cluster the data, we are then grouping the data, and we are saving the data to the CSV that now includes the modeling results. In our final workflow, we are now evaluating the results of our model. We have loaded in the data that contains our raw data along with the results of our model, and we are creating visualizations and calculating various metrics to understand how each cluster is distributed and how each of the different groups of customers behaves. This way, we can compare the different clusters of customers and how they responded to the campaigns. Taking a look at the execution results of the previous workflow, we can find the cluster distribution. We can see that almost 70% of our customers are grouped into a single group, along with 25% in another cluster, and finally here we have a small remaining patch in the final cluster. Now we can dive deeper into how each of the different clusters are differentiated from one another. Looking at the clustering profiles, we can find the average values for each of the different clusters across our raw data. We can find a few key insights here alone. We can see that while the number of targeted customers in each cluster is similar in clusters 2 and 0, we can see that customers in cluster 0 often redeem the coupons at a much higher frequency to those in cluster 2. We can also see that those in cluster 1 weren't targeted as often by our campaigns. This is an important point, and it may be worth specifically targeting these customers more in the future. The interactions from cluster 0 also carry through our other results. We can see that often they are either at the top or very similar to cluster 1 in terms of engagement with our campaigns. And in certain cases, such as our manufacturing coupon redemptions, they are much higher than the other clusters. Looking at our visualizations, we can dive deep into each of these statistics. We can see that clusters 0 and 2 were much more similar to cluster 1. Cluster 1, as we saw in our cluster distribution pie chart, is also the smallest cluster, so it may be worth investigating what makes these customers especially unique. Here we can see an overall graph of the redemptions by each cluster, and we can see whether it's manufacturing or whether it's in-store discounts, the customers in cluster 1 were much more likely to redeem our coupons. Thank you for listening.